in today's video, what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about Kuma's tragic past and why he didn't quit, and how you can do the exact same to achieve anything you desire in life. This is Kuma. I want to show a quick little clip from the episode of One Piece 1004 around Kuma. So let's look at this really quick, if I can do it in the right way. Okay, so like as you know, this is Kuma. They want to shoot him down as he's climbing up the hill, climbing up the cliff, whatever it may be. Like he's going about it in his own unique individual way, just walking one hand after another. And maybe you've been in a situation like this where everybody's trying to bring you down, everybody's trying to like get you to stop from climbing. It could be Marines, it could be family members, it could really be anybody in particular. And all they're doing is they're just shooting you, and then like you fall down to the ground, and everybody's like, oh, okay, let's go get him. Like we took him down, and look at how far, like he climbed a good amount, like he climbed a very high amount, and yet people are trying to take him down because he was trying to escape, because he had something in mind that he needed to do, and that's what we're going to be covering in this video more in depth, so make sure that you stick around. So basically, he's at the ground. Everybody's kind of freaking out, telling everybody to run, doing all these different things, and it's like, okay, well, what's going on? Kuma's like, I'm not going to take this, I'm not going to stand Bonnie. She's going to be important later, so you want to make sure that you stick through, like I said, because you want to understand how you can have a Bonnie of yourself and understand why Bonnie is so important to Kuma, other than it just like being his daughter. So basically, Kuma uses his powers. He gets his powers, like she gets it. He understands what he's doing, and she's like, I feel that this isn't pain. She said that right here, where it's just like, I'm very familiar with my father's power. Where'd it go? This is not pain. Like, he's not in pain right now, which is fantastic, even though he just fell from like a cliff. So you would think that like, okay, this guy is in pain, but it's like, that's not what it is by any means. He ends up getting back up, and we're going to convey that as well to her. I'm going to convey that in terms of like, Luffy's done it multiple times as well, just because I know we have maybe a little bit more background around Luffy compared to Kuma. But like, he gets back up, and what's he do as soon as he stands back up is he turns back around, goes right back to that cliff, and he starts climbing again. Regardless of like how hard and how much he's been beaten down, like you can see the pain, the agony, the tears, the sorrow within his face, and it's challenging. I just take a screenshot for the thumbnail, which maybe it has changed, maybe it's not that thumbnail, but like you can see that like he doesn't want to keep climbing. He doesn't want to have to be putting himself into the situation where he's at right now. He beats his head against the wall, but like he knows that what he has to do is to be able to keep climbing, regardless of how many times he falls. The same concept has happened with Luffy as well too. Like if we look at, well, I'll get to that here in 1 second. Same thing with Luffy, like Acapella arc, when he lost all of his friends, thanks to Kuma, which wasn't great, but also Kuma ended up saving him and being his saving grace at that point in time. Luffy ended up still keep fighting. Same thing with when he fought Akunji. I can never say his name correctly. But like even then, like Luffy, he didn't give up. He ended up keep fighting just as Kuma is and has. And same thing with the Acapella arc when he fought against Crocodile. Like he ended up losing, but it still ended up helping him out in the end. And you're going to wonder like, well, how is this helpful to me? Like, what do we do about this? What do we do about when we fall? And that's where we want to talk about. Number one, you need to keep going, which may be straightforward. 2, you need to get stronger, as Luffy has over the years, and as I will have other videos that are going to be coming out around like rematches with Rob Lucci and Luffy, which I didn't end up talking about, that I kind of talked about a little bit in another video that you can always go back and watch, along with like having a Dharma. You might not know what a Dharma is. I didn't know what a Dharma was, and I found out that Dharmas are one of the best ways to do it. Dharma is basically, it's an Eastern perspective from the yogic world, and it's something that I want to help you guys understand so that you can start to do more things such as like Kuma or Luffy and keep going when you keep falling, because I know personally from my own experience, like I've fallen countless times with this YouTube channel, with lifting, with other goals, aspirations, financial means, whatever it may be. Like there's been countless times where I have been in Kuma's shoes as this, like as we talked about right here. Like I've been in his shoes where it's just like I fall because other people are trying to take me down, just as other people are trying to take you down. But like at the end, I still, once I get back up, what do? I turn right back around and I keep going up that mountain, no matter how much time it takes, no matter how much pain I feel, no matter how sorrow I feel, because I have the Dharma, like I was saying, and the Dharma is the most important part. And there was a guy on Reddit that I liked what he was saying, mspells4397. Kuma's backstory is incredibly depressing, which it may seem depressing, but like that's the whole point of what I'm doing with this video and how I convey the channel in general is like, it's really only depressing if you decide to add that value to it. And I have another video, which you guys can always subscribe to Patreon. I ended up creating a Patreon account where you can get all of these future videos that I do in advance for $5.99 a month. Super cheap, less than probably you spend on like McDonald's, coffee, maybe some other fast food or junk food that you end up spending per month. And with this information, you get all of my strategy, tactics, stories in advance compared to like having it in the past where you aren't actually getting any sort of like real applicable value from this. So like, links down in the description, you can check that out because I have other videos around Rick and Morty coming up, other videos around My Hero Academia. There's just so much depth and like aspects that I don't believe many of us understand or know in this type of realm. I didn't understand it at first, but like the more you dive into it, like certain words and phrases can have so much meaning. Like even just Kuma's like willingness to keep climbing because he has his dharma is one of the most compelling things ever. And why it's just like some people may think that his story is depressing, which yeah, very well could be, but it also comes down to this one simple thing. It's called framing. Framing. And I know my handwriting is kind of atrocious, but basically framing is everything. So like his story, his back, like, and I did air quotes right there. His story could be considered like depressing to someone outside because that's all they can relate to that specific aspect. And there's something where I was going to also relay there's something from Rick and Morty, one of the episodes that I watched that's going to be coming out in a future video that I was also going to relay. If it comes back to me, it'll come back to me. But most of these, like, they're off the cuff. Like, I have a rough outline, as you can see right here, which we're going to be getting to this, and this here in a second. But I want to cover M spells words first because, like, sure, Kuma's story could be depressing. It could also be inspiring. Like, it's Piring. Wow, that is fantastic spelling right there. So basically, Kuma's story is more of an inspiration than depressing because like it's something that it's a story that shows grit, that shows conviction, that shows confidence, that shows a willingness to never give up regardless of the adversities that stand in your way. And sure, he might not have trusted everybody. Maybe there are certain people that have kind of screwed him over and hurt him in the past, but like that didn't stop him from being able to keep with his dharma, which let me jump into this and then we'll jump back to that other thing because I might as well give you a little bit of like, what is the dharma? You might be asking yourself right now, like, I didn't know what a dharma was. And I might as well share this with you. So it's like, dharma is a Sanskrit word that means duty or responsibility. Sanskrit is what yogis and the ancient Hindus used to be able to find and understand words that resonated better than the human language did to help you have a better understanding of like purpose, meaning, and like just other words that can't physically be described in like the English native tongue. It's Japanese kind of has some similarities to Dharma as well too, or like to Sanskrit, just because of their symbols and their analogies and all this other stuff that goes along with basically that Japanese culture. So it's like your Dharma can refer to your duties and or your responsibilities, and these can be your duty to your career, your education, your duty to your family, your duty to your friends, your duty to your community, your duty to the world at large, your duty to yourself, and like these are all great duties. It's just one of the biggest duties, and I'll just give you a little taste of like, what do you think Kuma's Dharma would be? We'll get to that here in a second, but like, I want you to think about that. So it's just like a huge advantage to this approach is that it gives you a lot of tolerance for suffering and failure, which that's what Kuma has, that's what Luffy has, that's what Zoro has, that's what Nami has, that's what everybody in One Piece has that has ever fallen, or failed on their journey is they have a tolerance for suffering and failure, because the reason why you haven't been able to succeed in the ways that you're wanting to in your life is because you haven't found like something that's bigger than yourself that you can support. And that's why like what Kuma's Dharma is, have you figured it out quite yet? Should I tell you right now, or do you want me to give it a minute? All right, we'll give it 1 minute and we'll come back to that, and you can comment down below on whether or not like what you think his Dharma is to let me know. But basically, maybe we'll do a live around this next time. So like, tying back to what M Spell was talking about, how it's like depressing while you're thinking about what Kuma's Dharma is like Oda was so uplifting and inspiring that it had to feel distraught for him in the same way as a lot of the other tragic characters. Wow, I can never say Japanese names. Korozan also lost his father to his own brother and had to pretend to be familiar with him for years while spying before being murdered by him. But it's just like the whole like aspect that Kuma's story is depressing. I don't see it as depressing. I see it as inspiration. Like you could look at my story as depression as well too, where it's just like I didn't have friends, like lonely, sad, on my own, didn't really understand how to communicate, didn't really have purpose, drive, direction. Like I was broke, I was poor. I didn't really know what I was doing with my life, and yet somehow I found like ways to use like characters such as Luffy. I know I've used Luffy 3 times here, or characters such as like Kuma that were able to like give me inspiration to want to keep going, because like they didn't give up in the face of adversity. They didn't give up when the odds were stacked against them. They didn't give up when they had enemies that were standing in their way. So it's just like, why do you have to do the same thing? The reason for them being able to do that is because they had their dharma. So like dharmas is what will compel you to keep moving forward regardless of the suffering and the adversities that stand against you. So Kuma's dharma, if you haven't figured it out by now, is Bonnie. Bonnie is his dharma. Bonnie is the reason why he keeps doing the things that he does, is because it's his career and his family. Like, sure, his family was, like, his career was to the Navy admirals and things like that, but he was doing it because he wanted to make sure that his daughter was protected. And that was his main goal. That was his main objective, was to make sure that Bonnie was always protected, was always safe, was always, like, cared for, regardless of if he could be there for her or not. And that's what, like, every parent needs to do. I'm not a parent right now, other than to myself, which in all hopes, and my likelihood is I want to help you also become a parent to yourself. It takes some time. You kind of have to nurture yourself, and this is what happens when you become an adult and when you start to like leave your home and graduate from college and like do all these things. And why like it is great to watch like anime such as like One Piece or cartoons or things like that. It's just you also have to like zoom out and look at the bigger picture and realize that like sometimes these things may actually be a hindrance to you in some way, shape, or form. I'm going to be making a video coming down the road, coming down the pipeline, which I talked about pipeline a little while ago, but pipeline is basically a sales term for like upcoming projects. What we're going to be doing is also talking about like My Hero Academia, because on the Discord group, one of the guys, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and I do apologize for that, and I don't have Discord open right now, but I remember you saying, 2 of you guys were saying like My Hero Academia was mid, and I'm like, it is, but it's also like there's some significant meaning that I have to it, so I'm going to be talking about that in a later video. So like if they're subscribed, you might as well also subscribe to the channel as well too. It's completely free. It's a click of a button. You don't really have to do much more than that. But like Kuma's duty was to make sure that Bonnie was protected, so he would be experimented on. He was willing to climb up the mountain time and time again, regardless of the suffering that he had to face while doing so. So it's just like he kept going, and he would get stronger and stronger, just as Luffy and all these other characters have. So basically, like, how do you keep going when, like, you keep getting knocked down? The ways that I found to do this is by just knowing your why, like having a clear understanding as like, why are you doing what you're wanting to do? And like, if you understand why you're doing it, it could be because you want to have fame or accolades, but like that's only going to be temporary. Like if you're just looking for money and you're looking for the success, then you're never actually going to achieve what you want to achieve in life. And I have a perfect story to this as well. So like myself, so like this is wee little weeb right here, or whatever it may be. A little sad, not super happy. But then I found out that like if I read, and this is a book, if I read books that weren't like anime based, like now all of a sudden like I was able to learn and I grew in education. This is going to be a very poor I was trying to make a light bulb. Okay, this is a light bulb, very poorly drawn light bulb, but that's a light bulb, which gives me knowledge. So like knowledge, this is knowledge, I don't know why that's knowledge, which that knowledge then translates into dollars, which I mean, if you guys are wanting dollars, awesome. If not, like no worries, you can keep like doing what you do anime wise and things like that. But I know that if you've been watching my content for a period of time, you're more about like wanting to have either money or some sort of like improvement around, like let's say some sort of gains, like you get muscles or whatever it may be, and then you're happy, and then you can start to have more. I'm going to toss this in here. This wasn't the original plan, but this is the great part about doing the videos the way that I do, because there's certain aspects and topics and ideas that I like talking about, and maybe it's better to do like lives in these regards. But basically, then you can start to have like women like her or whatever it may be, and you can start to have like these small little subtle tactics and tricks and whatever it may be, and understand like, oh, hey, I want to feel this, and this happens through self-education. But basically, so what happened when I started on this journey where I was like a small little weeb, I didn't know what I was doing. I started reading like personal development books, self-help books, like all these different books that like increased my knowledge and understanding of the world that we lived in at large. So then this light bulb was like, it was off, but then it turned on, which gave me knowledge, which I could then use to translate to making money. But I found out that like when I made, let's say, which I have, when I made $10,000 a month, like it was great and it was fantastic, and I was able to like move out, I was able to see like all these movies, I was able to like relax, but like all I was doing was I was wasting my time. And the reason for that was because I didn't have a clear dharma. I didn't have a clear like purpose that served like my career, that served my family, that served my friends, that served my community, that served my world at large. All it really did was it kind of served myself, and it was great, and it is great, and it's why like if you want to check out the stuff that I have on Patreon, highly recommend it. It's $5.99. I invested in myself when I started going down this journey of like self-development, self-growth, self-progression. It's the only way that I truly knew how to learn. And like having something that is so cheap and you kind of get this information and wisdom prior to like everybody else online and not having to wait weeks or months or whatever it may be, you can start to progress in faster terms, and it's just something I want to give to you guys right now. And you also get to be mentioned at the end of each video, which I think is really cool to see. So basically, when I started making $10,000, it was cool, but it's like I started to like not feel great about myself, and like I was still kind of getting up, but I wasn't getting up in the same ways as like Kuma or Luffy or like any of the other Straw Hats or like Bonnie or anybody else was. I just kind of felt down. And I was like, well, there's got to be more to this, right? Than just like having money and having like this prestige in this world. And it's just like I didn't feel like there was. So what I ended up doing was I had to figure out like how to keep going. So I went on like a lot of bike rides, and this is a bike, a very poorly drawn bike, but this is a bike, and this is me. Like I would ride like 30 to 50 miles a day or whatever it may be. I went on a lot of like walks as well too, to understand like how I could figure out like what is it that I want, because like sure, the money's great, but what I really want to do is I need to have a dharma. I need to have something that's willing to give me the tolerance for suffering and failure, kind of like Kuma, not even kind of, exactly like Kuma. Whereas if I didn't have that, then it's just like, well, I can suffer and I can have all of these other things that aren't working out for me, or I can have a dharma where it's like I'm great if I like it, if I'm crying or whatever it may be, like if there's like tears flowing down my face all the time, or like if I'm alone, like in a community of people where it's just like, all right, here I am, wonderful, and it's just like here's me, and maybe this is you right now too, and then like here's all this is going to be people. So like then there's this other community like over here where it's just like there's all these other people. Those are people, very poorly drawn people, but it's like there's all these other people over here that are like partying, they're like maybe drinking, they're smoking, like they're doing all these things that like it's not for you. And you're like, I don't want to be a part of these people. So like what you do is you cross them out. But then all of a sudden now you're alone. You're all by yourself. Like all you have is just you, yourself, and I. Like it's just me, myself, and I, basically. I believe Mac Miller made a song about that. Or maybe G-Eazy. Comment down below if you know who that is. But like it was just me by myself. And I found out that I would rather do this and be like who I am by using my dharma to protect those that I truly do care about, and sacrifice everything if I have to, because like I'd rather be happy by myself doing what I love compared to trying to fit into a crowd that is not myself. And maybe you are in the exact same position. I know it's hard, I know it's challenging, not knowing who you are or where you're going. And since most of my community, as I think I said in a previous video or in a future video, not sure when this is coming out or when other videos are coming out, but like most of my audience is in their early 20s. And I know that when I was in my early 20s as well too, like I didn't know what I was doing. Like 18 to 24, I was completely lost. Like I'm still, like I have a pretty good grasp on it now that I'm 28, which I think a couple of you wished me happy birthday, which I want to say thank you for that as well too. And it's just like, I know how it feels, like not having direction, not knowing what to do after you graduate from college. All you've ever known is like watching anime and sitting down on the couch, and like it was great. It's fantastic. Like even when I went to the anime expo in DK, there was a time where like I was talking with this one girl that was sitting next to me, and I was like, she was in her 30s or something like that. I was like, how are you still coming to these anime expos? And she's like, it's because I like being able to like come back to my childhood. I like being able to come back to like remembering when times are simpler. And that's why it's great to have a dharma, because like if you go back to those times that are simpler, like you can go back and you can like escape into like the past, whatever it may be. But like if you truly want to achieve anything in life, if you truly want to protect like your Bonnie, your family, whoever it may be, like you have to be willing to tolerate suffering and failure. Because in all likelihood, and from my own personal experience, I know this to be true, like with going to the gym, like and lifting and becoming strong. And like Zoro, he goes through his own training regimen as well too to become strong. Like we grow through suffering, we grow through failures, we grow through like hardships. But a lot of us will maybe think that it's depressing instead of, okay, this is something that could be looked at as depressing, but what it really is it's going to be an inspirational story to bring somebody else up, to help somebody else like later in life that we didn't originally know of. But like that's the biggest thing. And I know that that's something that you want to do if you watch my videos and you made it to this point in the video, because most people that are out there watching anime, they don't understand these concepts. They don't understand this way of thinking. They don't understand these types of ideas and perspectives that like are hidden within these shows that we end up watching. And I find it incredibly insightful. And I want to inspire as many people as I possibly can to realize like when you're in this situation as Kuma is, that's not a bad thing. It may be depressing to somebody, but that's just because that's the story that they're relating. Instead, it can be an inspiration to a lot of other people. And that's my big thing is like, what do you do when you're in these situations? Understand what your duty is, create like a list and figure out like, how can I be responsible for my education or to my employer? How can I be more responsible to like my family? Maybe it's retiring your mom or like retiring your dad or paying them back for everything that they've done, whatever it may be. Like have something that is larger than yourself that you're willing to suffer for, because otherwise if you don't, you won't be able to do it. You can imagine that like maybe, well, since you guys are younger, I'll give this analogy. It's like you could imagine like your parents, maybe they aren't in the best place, whatever it may be, but they gave you the best that they possibly could. And what they were able to do was they suffered and they tolerated the failures of maybe them at their job or at the company or within the relationships or whatever it may be, because they understood that they needed to protect you. And if they couldn't protect you, then it was like, well, what's the point? So they would suffer in regards to that said thing that they were trying to accomplish. If you can suffer at large and if you're willing to tolerate suffering and failure, the best way that I've found out to do this is by going to the gym, is by working out, is by having something that is bigger than yourself and realizing like, hey, if I can do this one hard thing, then all likelihood I can do this other hard thing. Cool. Actionable steps for you guys right now is understand like what your dharma is, understand like where your duties fall. Maybe right now it's just for school and getting good grades, or maybe it's for at work or whatever it may be. Figure out what that is by asking yourself like a question of like, what is wrong with the world? So I'll write that out for you. What is wrong with the world? So write down this. I did this myself as well. Like I answered this question. You might think like, I've already done 150 and there's all these different things that are crazy with the world that I could fix. I'm telling you, dude, when you write it down on a piece of paper or on your computer, either one, whichever one works best for you, you'll figure out that there's really not as much wrong with the world as you thought it was, unless you're watching the news and the media, which stop that right now. Like don't watch any more news, pay any attention to any other media, because all they're doing is they're trying to get people to bite like heads with one another. I gave like a little like fist bump, like bumping heads basically. But what you want to do is just figure out like what's wrong with the world and then start to work backwards from there. That's about it for me, I would say. Yeah, links down in the description. Like I said, for Patreon, if you want to support, $5.99. You get recognized in the videos. You also get early access to videos along with getting your, well, I guess you get those two things right now. And then you can subscribe to the channel, leave a like or comment if you made it to this point. And if you like this format, I know I'm kind of mixing it up a little bit. We have other videos coming as well where there's like going to be gameplay in them as well too. So like if I don't do a video similar to this, then if you want to send me your gameplay, if you do play any sort of games or anything like that, I'll include that in the video and we can watch that while like I'm talking, because I myself don't have the ability to record game footage, and I feel like it's cool. I've always liked watching gameplays while other people are doing certain things. So if I'm not doing one of these and I'm just doing like a talking video, then we can do that. Otherwise, if I do one of these, we'll keep going this route. It's really just up to you guys. You guys are the ones that can decide on what's working and what's not. And if you have any information or questions, just let me know down in the description down below, because these are stories that I know have worked out for me, but it's just maybe they won't work out for you. But these are things that have helped me inspire, and I'd rather help you guys avoid the same pitfalls or mistakes and realize that like money's great and all, and having like being able to tolerate pain and suffering is going to get you a lot further in life than succumbing to like the weakness that a lot of society seems to be pushing on young men and young adults now. So I'm doing my best to change that using what I know best, which is anime, cartoons, movies, TV shows, whatever it may be, along with like other aspects that I seem to be learning in my life as well too. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video, and have a happy Mother's Day as well too.